Roe v. Wade by Imogin Forys and Sula Krogstad.
Overview. In 1970, Jane Roe sued Henry Wade, saying a woman's right to abortion was protected by her right to privacy. After taking it to the Supreme Court in 1973, the court ruled that banning abortion went against the U.S. Constitution. As a new frontier of women's rights, the ruling of Roe v. Wade was the first Supreme Court case about abortion in the U.S. that gave the protection of choosing to have an abortion for almost 50 years. You may have heard Jane Roe's name in recent politics. She lived in Texas most of her life and became pregnant with her third child in 1970, which is when she sued the district attorney of Dallas County, Texas, Henry Wade, saying that her right to abortion was protected by her right to privacy, which fell under the 14th Amendment. With the help of attorneys Sarah Weddington and Linda Coffey, they took it to the Texas Supreme Court, where they voted in favor of her, the plaintiff. When Wade disagreed, Roe filed a grievance, and on December 13, 1971, they argued their case to the Supreme Court. For Henry Wade's brief, he urges that the preservation of life of the unborn human organism is a matter of compelling interest sufficient to give the state of Texas constitutional authority to enact laws for that purpose, meaning he thought that the embryo and fetus are important enough for Texas to protect. When Henry Wade said he would continue to criminalize abortion, Roe, Weddington, and Coffey re-argued their case on the 11th of October, 1972. The Supreme Court released their verdict on January 22, 1973. They ruled that the banning of abortion violated a woman's right to privacy, which is protected by the 14th Amendment, and thus states could not restrict abortion. To balance the woman's privacy and health with the fetus's health, the Supreme Court divided the pregnancy into 3 trimesters, with abortion being legal in the first trimester. In the second trimester, it was to save a life, and in the third, abortion was almost impossible.
Roe's attorneys, Weddington and Coffey, were both under 30 when they challenged the U.S. Supreme Court laws. J. Floyd was Henry Wade's attorney as well. Before Roe. Long before Roe v. Wade, in the early 1800s, abortion was legal across the country until the woman could feel the movements of the fetus. Abortion was extremely unsafe, highly dangerous, induced by dangerous drugs, with some methods proving to be fatal. By the 1850s, attempts to criminalize abortion rose, including the Catholic Church, who banned abortion in 1869, and in the late 19th century, the U.S. passed several laws making abortion more difficult. By the 1880s, abortion was outlawed in the majority of America. Regardless, more than 200,000 to 1.2 million women continued attempting illegal abortions. Almost a century later, Jane Roe also attempted an illegal abortion. In the 1960s women's rights movement, some court cases laid the groundwork for Roe, including Griswold versus Connecticut in 1965. A few states had legalized abortion by then, including Alaska, Hawaii, New York, and Washington. In 1970, Roe and her attorneys filed a lawsuit attacking Texas abortion regulation laws. At the time, many places distributed abortion pills but did so in secret. When people wanted an abortion, they found out where to go by word of mouth, typically for in-state abortions. Other higher-class citizens flew or drove to states with legalized abortions.
The lawsuit. Jane Roe argued to the Supreme Court first on December 13, 1971, and again on October 11, 1972, claiming that a Texas law making abortion almost completely illegal was too vague and violated her right to privacy, protected by the 1st, 4th, 5th, 9th, and 14th Amendments. Henry Wade argued against this, claiming medical science now knows that life occurs in the human embryo far sooner than the 20th week of pregnancy, which is the usual time that the pregnant woman feels the movements by the fetus. On January 22, 1973, the Supreme Court stated that the right to continue or end an abortion is not the government's decision, and the Texas law violated the 14th Amendment only. The 14th Amendment was ratified on July 9, 1868, and it states that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. This guarantees some rights to the people in the U.S. are not touched by state governments, including abortion rights.
Mrs. Weddington, you may proceed whenever you're ready.
Roe, the pregnant woman, had gone to several Dallas physicians seeking an abortion, but had been refused care because of the Texas law. She filed suit on behalf of herself and all of those women who have in the past, at that present time, or in the future, would seek termination of a pregnancy. If the woman is unable to get either a legal abortion or an illegal abortion in our state, she can do a self-abortion, which is certainly, perhaps by far the most dangerous, and that is no crime.
Once a child is born, a woman no longer has a choice, and I think pregnancy may terminate that choice. Recognize the humanness of the embryo or the fetus. And they said, we have an interest in protecting a fetal life.
The vote of the Supreme Court came to a 7-2 decision against the Texas laws and other state laws. The dissent was Justices White and Rehnquist, who argued for fetal personhood, meaning they thought a fetus counted as a person, and thus they thought abortion was murder, which is a common argument of the anti-abortionists even today. But the majority argued that abortion and your right to privacy are, as Justice Blackmun put it, a fundamental right that is broad enough to encompass a woman's decision whether or not to terminate her pregnancy.
Roe v. Wade's effect and influence. Immediately after the lawsuit, women across the country were given access to many different forms of abortions. Abortion was available through the mail, the doctors, and other places. Many other reproductive tools became available as well, like birth control and contraceptives. The amount of orphans born to white women after the case went down by 34 to 37% within the first 5 years. In the years and decades following, the women's rights movement would continue to make abortion more accessible to people of color, people living in poverty, and younger people. Today, less than 0.3% of women getting legal abortions need to be hospitalized. However, the United States has a long, hard history of racist healthcare practices that still continue today, including areas with more limited access to abortion, discrimination by some providers, and racial stereotypes. This is something unfortunately rooted into America's history. Roe v. Wade was re-challenged in 1992 by Casey, who sued Planned Parenthood of southeastern Pennsylvania, with the Supreme Court overruling Roe's trimester pregnancy and replacing it with a system that was less beneficial for reproductive rights. Roe v. Wade was overturned after Dobbs challenged Jackson Women's Health Organization in 2022. The Supreme Court stated that the U.S. Constitution said nothing about abortion, and that abortions had nothing to do with privacy. So therefore, states were allowed to regulate and permit abortion as they pleased. Roe v. Wade was a frontier of privacy and women's rights. Women's rights have been up for debate for centuries. Women's bodies have also been up for debate. The impact of the landmark case were felt throughout the world. Roe v. Wade put a barrier of privacy for women who want an abortion, but it also put a barrier of privacy for women who wanted to wear pants, for women who wanted to work jobs, and for women who wanted to be themselves. Healthcare for women has been a struggle since day one. Safe, accessible, and private healthcare has never been available to everyone. Roe and her supporters went one step closer to this dream. Safe and legal abortion is extremely important because the privacy and safeties of its citizens should be America's top priority. Though Roe v. Wade was overturned, its legacy lives on today. Women's rights were challenged then, are being challenged today, and always have been. The ideas of Roe, Weddington, Coffey, the reproductive rights movement, and the women's rights movement continue to live on today. Roe v. Wade explored a new frontier of reproductive rights and women's rights that many continue to strive towards today.